Hello and welcome back to Social Studies Support Group. Today we're going to be talking about the MCQ and everything you need to know in order to answer the MCQ questions as efficiently and painlessly as possible. So in the AP exam, you're going to have 55 minutes to answer 55 multiple choice questions. And yes, that seems very daunting when you sort of face it for the first time, especially since these questions often come with stimulus material, and those can be paragraphs that you have to read. Well, you don't actually have to read them, as I've found out over the 2 years I've been doing them. So I'm going to teach you how to sort of evade reading the paragraphs and wasting your time, and sort of how to think about the questions, because they are so different than any other multiple choice you have done in your school career. And it took a while to sort of get the hang of MCQs, but if you just practice them, Google tests, do the Kaplan ones that I'm going to do, just that will really help you sort of exercise how to answer these questions, and you'll figure out your own methods even on what works best for you. And I'm sure everyone can answer these questions if you just have like the tools and the ideas and the methods in your head. You can answer these questions. So we're just going to start tackling this question right here. So the way I sort of think through these questions and tackle them is I do not read the passage first. I wouldn't recommend ever reading the passage first, just because it's so long and you don't use most of it to answer the question. And if you can answer the question without reading the passage, you can take that time onto a more complicated question and use that when you actually have to read it. Because when you actually have to read an entire passage word for word, it's going to take longer than a minute. So we're going to get into this one. I'm going to start by reading this sourcing statement at the bottom, the part that says President Lyndon B. Johnson Great Society speech. That's the first thing my eyes go to every single time I see an MCQ, just because that is a dead giveaway of what we're talking about, and we need to know what we're talking about in order to answer the question. Commencement address at the University of Michigan, May 22nd, 1964. Dates are very important in MCQ because then you can sort of place sort of what's going on at the time. This is Lyndon B. Johnson. He's a Democrat. He is a more progressive president. Like, we can sort of think about all of those things as we're answering the question, and it eventually becomes a subconscious act of just like, this is what's happening, this is what this person is, this is what they believe. It will become like second nature. You won't have to do it consciously, and that will save a ton of time when you can sort of multitask placing the person and the situation while also answering the question. So then I read the actual question: which of the following movements most likely inspired the ideals set forth in President Johnson's Great Society speech? So the keywords here are movements and ideals. So ideals are not like a set of policies. Ideals are just sort of this broad idea of what needs to happen or what should happen or what someone should believe, like that sort of stuff. Ideals is very broad. So we are not talking about inspiring individual policies, just big picture. And movements, social movements, political movements. We get the picture. So we need to know inspire the ideals in great society. So we just need to get the big picture of what great society is. If you've gone through the entire APUSH curriculum, I'm sure you'll know. But if you forget or you're just blanking or the term is unknown, we can skim this very quickly, and I will teach you how to do that right now. So don't start at the beginning and just read. Just scan it for keywords and key ideas. Water we drink, food we eat, air we breathe are threatened. That's a key part of this whole thing. So there's a problem here, clearly. The water is not safe, food is not safe, pollution, it's probably from the air, and build great society. So we're trying to build something, we're trying to fix something, we're trying to create something. Classrooms of America, so education reform. Society will not be great until everyone has education is basically what they're saying. So we need to fix something, we need to build something, we need to reform something. So this movement is dealing with, I guess, regulation, because of the water and the air and all of that. So what do we get from that? So who's doing these reforms? Well, it's Lyndon B. Johnson. He's a Democrat. He is a more progressive president. So I put my money on the government. The government needs to be doing these reforms. So I've sort of consolidated all of that into just a simple little phrase: the government needs to set forth these reforms. And I know that's a lot to get out of this, but I feel like if you have sort of the basic knowledge of APUSH down, you'll be able to sort of formulate that in your head, and you can condense all of this into that little phrase: the government needs to institute reforms. And now with that, we can answer the question. So which of these movements inspired the ideal that we just put together: the government needs to institute such and such reforms? So I'm going to get the little annotation out, and we're going to use process of elimination just for this one. I don't recommend using it on the test because it wastes a lot of time, but in order to really explain these questions, we'll do it for the first one. So the government needs to institute such and such reforms. Which of these, I guess, reflects or inspires that? Which of these is the closest to that? The new frontier? Is that the government really reforming anything or regulating anything or building anything? No, this is one of the obvious wrong answers. And then the fair deal. So this is tricky because this sounds a lot like the New Deal, first of all. And also, many people don't remember what the fair deal is. I mean, it's kind of a deep cut in APUSH. And if you don't remember every single term and every single idea in APUSH, this might be one that trips you up. So we are going to actually leave that one blank for now. And we will go back and see if we have a better answer than this, because honestly, this is really hard to remember. I do remember what it is, but it's really difficult and confusing. So we're going to leave that as an open option because this is one of the tricky ones. The New Deal. This is also a very good one because that's clearly government implementing reforms. You know, we have the jobs programs, the public works programs, the Tennessee Valley Authority. These are all very prominent things. We have the Social Security, the social safety net. All of this in the New Deal. All this in the New Deal is very clearly government trying to reform American society and the American economy. So we're going to leave this blank, and I'm just going to put a little check mark by it because, ooh, that's an ugly check mark. It's okay. Because this is one of the most obvious sort of in-your-face answers, just like a screaming right answer. But we are going to check the other ones just for the sake of ripping apart the structure of these questions. The progressive era. This is clearly a wrong answer. How would the entire progressive era, which is such a broad, all-encompassing thing, be an ideal of government reforms? I don't see how that would ever be right, so I'm going to cross that out also. So now we're down to two, the Fair Deal and the New Deal. So my advice when you're down to the two and you don't know what one of them is, I would pick the answer that is more broad, that is more obvious, that is more well-known. Because remember, when they make this test, they're not looking for you to memorize all these terms, definitions, people's dates. No, that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for ideas. They're looking for broad, all-encompassing ideas and how you could maybe have an example or two to support them. And that's about it. They're not looking for you to memorize little details. So I would go with the New Deal because it is the more obvious one.